I grew up in a small village where time moved slowly, where people knew each other's names, and where dreams often felt like faraway stars, visible, but too distant to touch. My father used to say, "Daughters are like morning flowers, fragile and full of hope." And I carried that hope with me, tucked deep inside, ever since I was a little girl helping the village nurse bandage wounds and measure cough syrup. That's when I knew, someday, I wanted to become a nurse. Years passed, and I worked hard, studied harder. I never let the cold stares or whispers stop me when I said I wanted to leave our village and study in New York City. People thought it was too big for someone like me. But I didn't care. I had one dream, and I followed it. When I finally landed in the city, everything felt new and dizzying. The buildings touched the sky, the streets buzzed like never-ending conversations, and the people, so different. I got admission to a nursing program at a hospital that trained students like me. It wasn't easy, but I knew I belonged there. After a week of orientation, I was assigned a partner for clinical rotation. His name was Marcus. He was tall, confident, and calm in ways that made everyone around him feel smaller, slower. His skin was dark as roasted chestnuts, and he had the kind of voice that could quiet a room without effort. The first time I saw him, I was carrying a stack of patient charts. He held the door open for me and gave me a simple nod. That's all. But it stayed with me. I never thought someone like me, a shy village girl with mismatched shoes and awkward words, would find herself paying attention to how someone smiles. But I did. Day after day, I found myself listening to his laugh, watching the way his hands moved when he checked a patient's pulse, or how he leaned against the wall during breaks, arms crossed, deep in thought. I tried not to stare. I tried not to feel what I was feeling. But feelings, like seeds, have a way of growing even in silence. Marcus never gave any sign he noticed me beyond our usual tasks. We spoke politely, shared notes, took turns checking charts. He was always kind but distant, and that made it harder. There were nights I lay in bed wondering if I was foolish, if my heart had wandered too far. One evening, after a long shift, I sat by the window of our shared hostel room. My fingers hovered over my phone. I shouldn't have messaged him, I told myself that. But my hands moved anyway. "Hi, Marcus. I hope it's okay," I messaged. "Just wanted to say thanks for earlier today. You were very calm during that emergency case." A few minutes later, the screen lit up. "Thanks. You were great too. You handled that patient like a pro." I smiled. For the first time, he saw me, not just as a fellow student, but as someone real. I replied again. He answered. Then again. And again. The hours melted. We talked about our childhoods. He was raised in Chicago. He used to help his grandmother make soup and had once thought of becoming a chef. I told him about my village, the dusty roads, the pond where we played, and the nurse who first inspired me. Our chat lasted until the sky outside turned pale and the birds began their morning songs. When we stopped, my heart felt light but shaken. I didn't know what to expect now. Had I crossed a line? Or had he felt the same? I went to class, eyes tired but soul awake. I didn't see him until lunchtime, and when we passed each other in the hallway, he gave me a small smile. A different kind of smile. One that said, "I remember everything we said last night." After our shift ended, I returned to my room and started removing my shoes when I heard a knock at the door. It was the hostel supervisor. "You're wanted in the staff quarters," she said simply. My heart dropped. Had I done something wrong? My thoughts raced. I walked across the hallway and down the stairs. The sun was beginning to fall behind the tall city buildings, casting long shadows across the tiled floors. When I reached the supervisor's lounge, the door was slightly open. I stepped in and paused. It wasn't the supervisor waiting. Marcus stood by the window, his back turned. When he heard the door, he turned slowly. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes, they held a question. "Hey," he said softly. "Hi," I replied, unsure, nervous. He walked toward me, hands in his pockets. "Asked to speak to you privately," he said. "Why?" My voice was barely a whisper. He hesitated, then said, Because last night felt different. I looked away, my hands suddenly cold. I know I'm older. I know I usually keep things professional. But I enjoyed talking to you, he said. I've been noticing you. For a while now. My breath caught. So, I wasn't imagining it. I turned to him, slowly. I thought you didn't see me, I said quietly. He smiled, the corners of his eyes softening. I did. I just didn't know if I should. Then, like a moment stretching forever, he reached toward me. His hand brushed my arm, lightly, respectfully. I didn't pull away. He stepped closer, his warmth folding around me like a blanket in winter. His arms moved gently, wrapping around me from behind. My back rested against his chest, and I closed my eyes. I heard his breath, steady and slow, and then I felt a gentle kiss, just below my ear, soft and real. Nothing rushed, nothing loud, just stillness and closeness. Then, a sound, footsteps. The door creaked open. It was Maya, my roommate. She froze for a second, then quickly looked away. Sorry, I didn't know. Marcus stepped back. His face was calm, his voice even. I should go. But before he turned, he looked at me and said quietly, maybe next time, when it's just us. He left the room, leaving behind a silence full of questions, full of electricity. I stood there, unsure of what just happened, unsure of what would happen next. But one thing was clear, something between us had shifted. And no matter how careful I had tried to be, my heart had already crossed the line. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, his voice, his touch, his promise. I didn't know where this road would lead us, but I knew I was already walking it, one quiet step at a time. In the following days, everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. In class, we sat at the same table, shared the same notes, passed each other the same instruments, but beneath that calm surface, there was something alive between us. A new kind of silence. A quiet question that kept pulsing between words. He didn't message me again right away, and I didn't either. We didn't have to. The look in his eyes every time we passed in the corridor said more than any words could. It was not loud or bold. It was steady, patient, like someone waiting for the right moment. I try to focus on my work, on the patients, on the textbooks. But sometimes, when I stood by the medicine cart or took notes on a chart, I could feel him watching me. Not in a way that made me uncomfortable, but in a way that made me feel seen, like maybe I wasn't invisible after all. One evening, just before dinner, I found a folded piece of paper slipped into my locker. It was simple, just a short note in his handwriting. Same place. Tomorrow. If you're comfortable. No name, no explanation. But I knew. And as I held that note, heart fluttering in my chest, I understood something else. This story wasn't over. It was just beginning.